honestly, this is the biggest myth. And I think this is the biggest deterrent for small businesses to get into TV because they always think that you need 100,000, 200,000 to make a commercial.
Yeah, it's way less than that.
You really don't.
Yeah.
And like they always think like you need this like really polished thing because it's going to be on this bigger screen than your phone. But honestly, all types of content works.
All right. This is episode 8. So Moiz, last week or 2 weeks ago, I was at Forward by Tatari, which is almost like their iPhone event every year that they put on. Basically, they talk about the state of the union in TV advertising. They bring brands, they bring agencies, they bring the product team from Tatari. Wow. They brought Robert Herjavec, who I got to hang out with.
The guy from Shark Tank?
Yeah, the nice guy from Shark Tank.
Yeah.
I will continue to stand by him as the nice guy after meeting him. Earlier that day, too, I hosted a lunch that Tatari paid for, and we had a bunch of brands that were also running TV. Anyways, I figured there's a lot of brands that run TV either in a big way or a small way, and I thought we should just bring Tatari on. We should bring Juhi from Fabletics, who's one of the panelists there, and we should just talk about TV, because I think there's a lot of questions about, like I had last week on Friday night, I spent an hour writing down a bunch of questions I had on TV, and I figured if I don't know the answer to these, there's probably a lot of people who don't know the answers. So I figured we could just go through those today.
Yeah, I do think that TV advertising is probably the biggest black box there is in direct-to-consumer advertising, where people are like, even if you tell me out of home, I can probably give you a guess of like what CPMs look like. Television, I've got no idea. I don't understand the differences between things like, OT or remnant. And so I'm excited to go through all of that.
Awesome. Well, with us today, we've got Juhi and Austin. Do you guys want to give yourselves a quick intro?
Yeah, sure. Well, thanks for having me, first of all.
Yeah.
I'm Juhi Pikale, VP of Performance Marketing at Fabletics. Fabletics is the largest digitally native activewear brand in the world, and we just surpassed about 700 million in revenue globally. We have over 2 million active VIP members online and in store, and we have over 95 stores now in North America.
Wow.
When you say 700 million in revenue, do you mean this year or like in the last 12 months, or do you mean like forever?
I think that was last year.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow. Amazing.
Yeah.
Cool. My name is Austin Santino. I work at Tatari. We're a technology company. Our platform is really built for the modern TV marketer. And so we work mostly with brands, but as well as with agencies. They're able to come in and both measure, track TV, as well as buy and plan in a very digital-like manner.
Yeah, for what it's worth, we used Tatari when we were running ads at Native.
Did you know the Tatari founder also started Shazam?
I did know that only because you told me that.
Yeah. That's so badass.
That is pretty crazy.
That in my head added so much legitimacy to the brand Tatari.
Because Shazam was acquired by Apple.
Shazam was not only acquired by Apple, but like it is natively integrated into Snapchat, the iPhone.
It's also insane. Like the first Facebook app. I'm sorry, the first Apple app that anyone can ever think of. Like, that was the first app that we were all like, wow, the iPhone is amazing because you can now identify songs that you hear.
Yeah.
That is pretty amazing.
Did he ever tell you like why he started Tatari?
No.
So he was president of a company called TrueCar. And as they were growing, he decided to launch a TV test. And I think he had to give the agency he worked with like a $3 million budget.
Wow.
Right, some time ago. And like you said, like after a few weeks, he could just tell it was going horribly wrong. Like all of his worst fears kind of came true.
Yeah.
And so at TrueCar being an automotive pricing company, like there are a lot of data science resources, right? So he actually sent a few of those people to go figure out how to measure TV. And once they did that, it worked phenomenally. And he said, like, this could work for a lot of marketers if they could figure out how to measure it correctly.
Wow.
And so then, like, coming out of that, as they're starting Tatari and they learned more about measurement, and they kind of figured out that buying was just as bad. And so that quickly became, it was initially just going to be a measurement platform.
Damn.
Wow, TrueCar is amazing. I used TrueCar to buy my parents a Honda Odyssey a while ago. It's amazing.
The flagship brown people car.
That's right. Yeah.
Moiz, you want to take the first question?
I think why test TV is a great question. But before we get into that, when does TV testing make sense for brands?
I think when you initially launch as a brand new brand, it makes sense to just exhaust the Meta and Google's initially.
And how much spend is that? In your experience, like how much to the point of diminishing returns where you feel like you've exhausted the channel?
It's two things, right? So in terms of spend, you probably want to get over 100, 200,000 at least, like just testing under your belt with Meta and stuff and figure that out first. But also the second piece is you could be exhausting your CACs, and that's when you know you're hitting diminishing returns in channels. So that's when it's good to sort of explore others too. I think 2 bars.
So it should be 6 figures in ad spend on Facebook. Yeah. My guess would have been it's even like, mid 6 figures. It would probably is like $400,000 to $500,000 a month. You've got product market fit. You're not exploring anything with your product anymore, or not much. And you're not, you have a good understanding of what like the messaging should look like when you're running an ad, and what's resonating with consumers and who your consumer is. Like, I don't think, and correct me if I'm wrong, you don't go to TV and you're like, let's figure out if men or women buy this product. It's sort of like, you should know who your customer is.
Yeah. TV is more for like amplifying your brand message.
Yeah.
Once you have product market fit, for sure.
Okay.
When did you start spending? And we started spending on TV after we were spending $1 million a month on Facebook.
For Ed Hint?
Yeah.
Yeah. We were also over $1 million a month on Facebook, and probably $2 million a month generally on marketing before we got into TV.
Yeah.
So it was a high barrier.
How did you choose your first TV like angle or creative?
I think that barrier may have come down a little bit just because so many brands have done this, where I don't know if it still requires $1 million a month in marketing spend in other channels to start getting to TV. For us, we tested a few angles. I still remember going to the shoot, and it was the craziest thing I've ever seen in my entire life. Have you gone to TV shoots?
Yeah.
Like, I was one of the actors. Like, there was one of the spots was the founder talking to the television, and the others were actors and actresses. And the actors and actresses were given their lines when they showed up in the morning, and within 4 seconds they had memorized their lines. Meanwhile, I was spending the entire morning remembering my 10 seconds in lines, being like, oh God, I messed it up still. And then, it came to shoot, and everyone's looking at you, and these people are, and like, the other ones have actors and actresses. Mine was just me. And it felt like it was 100,000 degrees. I was sweating like there's no tomorrow. And I'm like, this is not a good ad for a deodorant business if I'm sweating this much. Took a bunch of takes. It actually went really well. And the one that I did ended up becoming the best creative that we had. So we ran it for some time. But it was an insane experience. And I learned so much from that experience. It was really, really fun.
But I do want to go back to the point you were making about $1 million on Facebook. The barrier to entry on TV now is significantly lower than what it used to be. So in terms of like budgets and things to test, before it was like just you have to be in the upfronts, and that's a ridiculous commitment. You can't get out of it.
Can you explain what that is?
Yeah, what are upfronts?
So the upfronts is it's an event that happens around May in New York City. And that's when all the major networks come forward with their upcoming slate of programming. It's for advertisers to see, and then advertisers can basically book guaranteed inventory on there. So they're getting basically first dibs on being on these networks initially. But you're pretty much locked in with those buys. So it's usually the Fortune 500s and stuff that go for those.
And how big of a buy will they do? Like, let's say you went to the upfront, maybe Fabletics could do that today. How big of a buy is an upfront? Is it 10,000? Is it 50,000? Is it 100,000? Is it $1 million?
Say most brands that are participating in the upfronts are spending well over 10 million a year.
Okay.
In some cases, it could make sense if you're someone that really wants a piece of inventory. Yeah. Right. And it works and you're willing to pay for it. But most are spending well over 10 million. And in terms of the ceiling, you could add a few zeros.
Yeah. Okay. And so then if you're not buying upfronts, you said, hey, look, the barriers come down a ton. Okay. So upfronts are basically commitments you make in Q3 of a year for new shows that channels are going to launch. And you're like, I want to advertise when you launch the new season of Succession. Well, Succession's a bad example. Law and Order. Yeah, sure. So what are the other types of inventory then? Like, how is it cheaper?
First of all, there's a big shift that's happened. Linear is still big, but...
What's linear?
Linear TV is like basically cable TV.
So no ABC, no NBC, just cable.
Cable and broadcast is how you can think of it. Yeah.
Also, so what is not linear then?
Yeah, let's explain the other types too.
Yeah, so the other type is streaming, essentially. And Hulu, Netflix, everything, right? Like anything that you watch via Roku device or anything like that. So linear still makes up about 50% of all impressions, so it's still a big share, But streaming has now also become 50%. Right?
That's shocking that streaming is so high.
It's huge.
Because like Netflix has just turned on ads. Prime Video still doesn't have ads. Hulu does, but not for all customers. So like when you say 50, like streaming is 50%, I'd say of that 50%, probably the vast majority has no ads. Is that correct or not correct?
So that's the shift that is happening. I believe most streaming is ad supported.
Okay.
What's interesting too is when you look at some of these streaming platforms, think of like a Sling.
Yeah.
Or like I use YouTube TV.
Yeah, me too.
Right. When you watch YouTube TV, you're really just watching linear TV.
Yes.
Right. And then there's a small sliver that you could consider connected TV inventory, but it's kind of this revolving door, right? Where the lines get a little bit blurry between what
that is a great example.
streaming.
Sometimes you're watching YouTube TV and they're like, here's a moment of Zen. There's no commercial. And I'm like, this is amazing. Thank you, Google, for sponsoring this moment of Zen for me.
Is that because the programming is coming from linear TV, but the ads are coming from other, like not the linear inventory?
So most of the ads actually are coming from the linear inventory.
Okay.
When you watch something like
But then why is there
YouTube
that
TV.
gap?
That gap will be YouTube TV maybe held on to a piece of inventory that didn't get sold.
Got it.
Yeah.
Got it.
They'll hold a sliver for their platform.
Got it. Wow.
And so is connected TV the same as, streaming? Is that what you refer to as
I would
connected?
consider them both. Like, so streaming, you kind of consider an umbrella, right? You have what we call like over the top or OTT. This is like your Hulu, where just it's piped in. Essentially, they call it over the top. It's like over the top of a cable box, right? So it's piped in your Wi-Fi.
That's why it's called over.
You can watch Hulu on your laptop, on your phone, or on a connected TV device. CTV will more refer to like targeting a Roku device.
So
And
when
how
there's
is
a
that
device
different?
plugged in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Wait, how is that different? Because, Hulu is coming over the top through, my Roku device or through my Chromecast. How is connected TV different from that?
Connected TV more so refers to the device because you can target by the device as an advertiser.
Got it.
Yeah.
And that'll take higher priority of the inventory versus what would come in through Hulu's programming.
I'm actually not 100% sure how the dynamics would work there. Yeah. Most inventory is sold directly. And so that's going to be from, the content providers, the publishers, directly to brands or agencies, et cetera.
So then with Tatari, so even going back to the upfronts, does Tatari go to upfronts and say, we're going to buy out all of this, and then you become a market, you buy it at, $2 CPM, you guys run it through your platform, you'll flip it for $3 CPM, but you're allowed brands to buy it in smaller batches?
So we will go through the upfronts for specific clients, right? So we will, if Fabletics wants to we should do the upfronts.
Yeah, we should go.
We should do that. We should buy that $10 million.
Yeah.
It sounds like great business.
Yeah. You got your card on you?
So what we'll do is we'll go negotiate on behalf of advertisers. What we're not doing, like similar to a holding company, is we're not going out purchasing inventory and then marking it up. And then the way we approach it is we want to be unbiased, right? So we're only going to buy things that work. We're going to measure every piece of inventory the same way. And then that's how we'll recommend pieces of inventory to our clients, or that's how they'll come to the decision to maybe buy it through our platform in-house.
So if I come to the Tatari platform today, is that inventory that you're dynamically buying, like the second that I say I want to buy it, or you've already reserved it previously?
So it works a few different ways, right? When most new brands come to Tatari, like when Fabletics first joined us, we don't want to go into the upfront or book out a quarter of inventory.
Yeah.
Because we don't know what works, right? So we're not going to ask for X amount of dollars. So typically what we'll do is we'll bid dynamically, like in a weekly cadence, right? So we'll learn about Fabletics audience. We'll sort of correlate with where those people should be watching across connected TV, linear TV. And then we'll test. And as we start to understand the outcomes, that's when we'll start to sort of begin optimizing, right? If you can measure it, you can optimize it. So it is open inventory. We're bidding against other advertisers. And that's why it becomes important to have, essentially the technology to make informed decisions.
It's really far more sophisticated than I thought it would be. Like, I would have just assumed here's a Hulu show. Here are all the commercials for that Hulu show. But what you're saying is, hey, you can bid on the Roku device and be like, hey, maybe during a Hulu show, you can insert your commercial in some of those devices, but not all of them. Is that right? Am I thinking about that correctly?
There's multiple ways you can do it.
Yeah.
And that changes the CPMs. So if you go broader,
Cheaper.
Of course cheaper. But if you go more targeted, it's gonna increase.
For Fabletics, are you guys going broad or targeted?
We mostly go broad.
Okay. And are you mostly doing linear or are you mostly doing OTT?
Yeah, it's a great question. So for a long time, initially, we used to be in the upfronts, like years ago. And then we switched more to heavier streaming. And then after we started testing with Tatari, which is about 2.5 years ago, we have now since been at about a 70-30 split. So 70% cable and broadcast and 30% streaming. We're trying to get to 60-40 just because streaming's growing, and also like the big five, Netflix, Disney, now have ads.
Yeah.
So pretty excited about getting into that.
And so the 70% that's linear TV, that's cable television and broadcast television, you have like targeting in terms of show, but you don't have targeting in terms of device where you're like, I want the, only women who are watching this. You're sort of just like, hey, this is Real Housewives, so I think it's mostly women. Is that correct?
That's probably,
And me.
That's probably the only lever we really use. Like on Hulu or something, we'll just do like run of sight female only or run of sight male for the men's line. The only time we've done like show targeting stuff is like Yellowstone marathons or like holiday specials during Christmas.
Yeah.
Things like that, or like sporting events.
So with linear TV, you're not going to shows and being like, I want the commercial during this content. You're sort of saying, no, I'm going to take remnant inventory. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay,
and that's the benefit of like being with Tatari. Like we don't need to do those 10 million buys anymore.
Yeah.
You can actually get in at as low as 20K a week, which is a huge difference.
What's considered remnant? Is it just that it's not purchased at upfronts, or is it that this is a spot running tomorrow and I can buy it today?
It's a good question. So the best in it actually has, it's almost like a dirty word in advertising. When you hear,
I feel like it's always just been like, as far as I know, what remnant is, it's just unbought inventory.
Yeah,
but I'm not sure how far in advance that is.
So you have the upfronts, right? That's where most of your premium advertisers are pushing a lot of their budgets. And then after that is going to come something called like non-preemptible. Mm-hmm. This is where it's guaranteed inventory, but instead of booking out a super extended period of time, you're booking out for maybe a quarter or a month, right? You know exactly where that inventory is going to run. And then the sliver that's left is called remnant. And so this is inventory that publishers need to offload every week, right? And so as a result, it almost becomes, this bidding process between brands, agencies, et cetera. And it allows you to kind of game the system and get programs, like as she was saying, at much lower rates.
And is that generally cheaper? So I would imagine, like, let's say I'm going to use Law & Order because I don't know any other TV shows on. So let's say I'm watching, there's Law & Order. Someone has booked the upfront in Q3, which is sort of now. 50% of the upfront was sold. 25% of the, I think you called it guaranteed placement a month ago was sold. Let's say the Law & Order episode's in March. In February, the 25% is sold. There's 25% that's remnant during that show. Is that how it works? And then you're sort of bidding on it the week or the couple days beforehand through Tatari?
Typically the week. Yeah.
Okay. And then is the 25% you're bidding on way cheaper than the upfront? Here's really what I'm asking. There's two, when you go to an airline and there's an unsold seat on an airplane last minute, they charge a lot more for it rather than a lot less. And you're like, I don't think this makes sense. I think you really want to fill that seat up. I thought it'd be cheaper. And they're like, no, it's more expensive.
Yeah.
Here, I would imagine it's cheaper. Is that correct?
So the vast majority of the time it is cheaper. Okay. There are certain instances where maybe demand creeps up as it gets closer to the show airing. And so maybe it would have been better to book it in advance. So we'll recommend that in certain cases, but most of our brands are very digitally native, like Fabletics.
Yeah.
They don't want to be optimizing media once a month, once a quarter.
Sure.
Right.
And then, we were talking about buy-ins and we were talking about, upfronts, you need $10 million. Tell me a little bit about the lowest spender with Tatari in terms of how much they spend on TV ads per week, and then probably what the median is.
What I can say is that we have brands that will now come in, and I can't give you the name of the brand, but there's a brand that started, earlier this year at, I think, just under 10K per week. Within a few months, they had scaled that up to well over 50K per week. So that would sort of be the easiest way to get started, I'd say, is always just retargeting, right? For a small brand who's just looking to maybe test creative. Retargeting, I think the benefit of doing it on TV is, right, someone just saw you on digital, but then they see on the TV screen, you appear much bigger.
Yeah. Sure.
Right. So it's an impactful impression.
And so that has to be done through streaming, right? That can't be done. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, that's correct.
Because you're piping it in and sort of going to the connected device and saying, hey, this person just saw native online. We know that their Roku devices, this is their Roku device. Go show them the ad on native when they're watching Shark Tank.
Sure. Yeah. And so in terms of, what most brands typically start out with. We were kind of talking about when brands are ready earlier.
Yeah.
I'd say most brands typically test somewhere around like the 100K threshold. It could be below that. It could be above that over 4 weeks.
Okay. So they're spending about 100K a month on TV ads.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. As they start, and then, they'll scale and grow off the backs of that.
Let me ask one other question, which is, what is the, and I wonder if you guys know this, and no worries if you don't, what is the average cost of production of a TV ad? I've seen TV ads that look like they cost $4 to produce. Like it looks like a Blair Witch Project. And I'm like, even then it feels like someone is walking around with $3 in their pocket. And then I've seen other ads where I'm like, I think I saw the guys at Raycon produce an ad. My friend Roman showed me one. You know Roman, right?
Yeah, of course.
He showed me one and I was like, you got this insane gymnast, doing all these acrobatic tricks. This must have cost a fortune. He's like, we hired some random guy off the street in New York. And we got this warehouse space, the day beforehand. And the guy was like, we don't have any use for it tomorrow. And so they did it for a really reasonable price and made this amazing video. I'll tell you my experience at Native as well. We were a part of P&G when we started running TV ads. So we needed to work with unionized Screen Actors Guild Association or Screen Actors Guild, the unions, like actors. And so as a result, we had to pay the actors and actresses every time the ad aired.
What?
We had to pay them a residual.
That's insane.
So they were making money every time. So every time I saw the ad, I was upset.
Yeah.
That just cost me more money.
Yeah.
But actually I wasn't, because it's generally me and I was like, I like this.
Yeah.
So tell me a little bit about how much it costs to make an ad. And then you guys don't work with SAG actors, I would imagine.
Wait, you didn't negotiate your own check in that?
No, I told them that.
Well, we have a mix, but honestly, this is the biggest myth. And I think this is the biggest deterrent for small businesses to get into TV, because they always think that you need 100,000, 200,000 to make a commercial.
It's way less than that.
You really don't. Yeah. And they always think you need this really polished thing because it's going to be on this bigger screen than your phone. But honestly, all types of content works. Like for Fabletics, we do have our big productions because we have Kevin Hart. So anytime there's any celebrity content made, yes, it's a bigger production. And that works, but we've also tested a multitude of other types of concepts too that don't cost a fortune. We've made stuff for 20 to 50K range that's performed. We've also taken influencer stuff and, added really crisp motion graphics to it and stuff. That's just pure editing.
Yeah.
And that's performed as well, So I think you really just need to test and try different things because all sorts of things perform.
I think one of the hard parts about when you're running Facebook ads, generally the cost, especially if it's a static image, the cost is virtually zero, so you're just like, I can run 100 of these, one can win. And I've spent $1,000 and I've got one winner. So that the economics work out really easily or can work out really easily. How many commercials do you shoot where you're like, okay, here's the one that we scale? Is it 1 out of every 10 creative scale? Is it 1 out of every 5? Is it 1 out of every 3 because you've dialed it in so well? Tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah. So when we actually initially did our pilot with Tatari, we actually tested 15 different creatives.
Wow.
And yeah, we did. And we just had a big bank, from years of creating and stuff, and it's passion. So we wanted to try all this. We wanted to try the celebrity stuff we had. We wanted to try some of the product feature style. And we also wanted to try some of the influencer stuff, And then that basically gave us a good indication as to what works, which we were able to carry forward. But the good thing with TV is, with Facebook and TikTok, actually we see creative fatigue happening pretty quickly. Here, if you find a winning concept, it could actually work for years.
Yeah. There's, that guy we talked about, AJ Kubani?
Yes.
He's got that brand Lizard Flare. And that one TV commercial that they run, which is how I became aware of him, because I went down the whole funnel, has been running for 3 years, and it still says, this offer only lasts 12 hours. But I've heard the same from the Moon Pod guys. They say they'll find one commercial, and same with direct mail. If you find good direct mail and good TV, you can run it for years. Yeah. I have 2 brands that I've worked with where we produce their TV commercial with the same editing team that makes their Facebook ads, and it had virtually no cost, other than that. Well, for one, we just took existing shoot content. So the photo and video shoot that they already did, we just took that, added overlays, added a voiceover, and threw it up on TV, and it started working well. The second one, we hired an influencer mom who was basically just a YouTuber mom. And it costed us $5,000 to produce the whole thing and edit it and ship it. And it always baffles me, like, why do people not do this more? Because you could literally produce a creative for less than $10,000 and test it. But like at Hint, I think our first shoot was $100,000. It was this whole production completely on. I had hair and makeup, and I was in the commercial for 4 seconds.
Yeah.
You know, like, why is that notion true? And also, do you see other brands doing that? Like, are more brands starting to just rip a commercial from their in-house editor and just throw it live?
You know, there's a few different ways to look at it. The reality is most brands probably have content on hand that would work on TV. If they're running it on TikTok, maybe if they've tested YouTube a little bit, right, that can be reformatted, and you can learn a lot about TV by just running that. I think as sort of your campaign grows, right, the biggest part of it is it gives you a chance to tell your story. And understandably, a lot of marketers can be very conscious of the story they want to tell, right? So like a dramatic example would be a brand may start out with TikTok or similar content when they first launch, but if they scale into like the Super Bowl, that's probably not the message that they would want to run, right?
And like when you're running the content, you mentioned you had Kevin Hart, and then you had some influencer content, and you had some content that focused on like product benefits. Do you find that like celebrities make a big difference? Like, let's say Kevin Hart was free, and I can't imagine he is. When Nick and I once went to, I think it was, I went to I saw Aziz Ansari do stand up, and he's like, Kevin Hart makes money every time you flush a toilet when he's doing a stand up comedy. He's like, he monetizes everything. But let's say he was free. Would content with Kevin Hart perform better than content that's like talking about product feature? Like, generally, do people listen to celebrities and stop more because they recognize a face, or is that not the case?
Not necessarily. So even with a celebrity, it's really important to pair the right concept for them.
Yeah.
You know, so because I remember even at the Forward panel, I think there was another brand that was talking about this where they did a concept with a celebrity and actually didn't work at all because it didn't match their personality and their message at all. We've definitely had some hits with Kevin, so that's been great. But like, there's been some product benefit ads that have spent a lot more than that over time. And that's like one of those things that lasts over years, you know? So like, I wouldn't say that that's absolutely necessary, but it definitely helps with like a halo effect. Yeah.
What's the halo effect of TV? So if TV starts doing well and you're scaling up budgets, one, how are you measuring if it's doing well? Like, how do you decide, you know, this is doing well, you know, because there's no direct click or anything. And then second, what's the effect of that? Like, do your acquisition costs on Facebook get lower? Does your Google search go higher? Do you get more foot traffic in stores?
I think the biggest effect that you will see right away is an increase in direct traffic and an increase in brand searches. That's like the immediate first indicator. We also have a quiz, a style quiz that people take when they come to our website. And there's a mandatory question on there. How did you hear about us? Which is usually post-purchase with other people, but for us, it's happening at the lead flow. So we're able to see, how many people are selecting TV on there. So we can, that's kind of how we measure.
Got it. And then, do you use Northbeam, Triple Whale, any of those platforms?
We do not. We have our own internal attribution, but we also use Tatari's when they're able to give us like a time-based spike analysis. So basically on linear TV, you know exactly what time the spot airs. So they're able to see within 5 minutes of that how much is increase on sessions on your website.
Got it.
Okay, yeah. I'd love to talk about measurement in a second. Just take one more second about targeting. When you're doing targeting, primarily the targeting is, hey, this is the show that it's going to be on, right? Like when you guys are buying remnant inventory. Let me take one more step back. Is most of your purchases on behalf of clients remnant inventory?
So it really depends on the client. A client that is spending, let's say, 50, 60 million a year, they're probably going to weight more into other inventory types, right? Yeah. It's especially for brands who are newer starting out. We want the agility and we don't want to be beholden to something in advance, right? Until we know it works.
Okay. So for newer brands, primarily remnant.
Yes.
For older brands, you also, okay, gotcha.
Yeah. And then in terms of targeting, there's so many different ways to think about targeting on TV. And I think it's actually what a lot of new to TV advertisers almost get wrong.
Yeah.
Right. They come from digital and they have this great idea of their customer. And so they'll come to TV and they'll want to target guys who live in Charlotte, North Carolina, who are recording a podcast in New York right now. Right. And it's like a very small group of people. And it kind of restricts their ability to scale. And then sort of the trade-off always is the more targeting you deploy, the more expensive things get.
Yeah.
Right. So you want to leverage targeting, but you also want to realize that it's a new channel. It behaves differently, and you might find a cheaper outcome by going a little bit more broad, sort of as Juhi was saying.
So let me ask a couple examples. Like one is you can obviously target by show when you're purchasing remnant inventory. So yeah, I want to do Law and Order or The Real Housewives. Can you target by geography? So for instance, does Law and Order Chicago or Law and Order playing in New York City have different ads than Law and Order in Los Angeles, such that I can be like, I want to target people, let's say I'm like, hey, look, I'm launching into Target, but only Target's on the Eastern Seaboard for some reason, because I'm a new Blue Apron competitor and I just haven't gotten to the West Coast yet. So I only want to target East Coast. Can I do that with television?
It's very easy to do on streaming.
Yeah.
It becomes very expensive.
Gotcha.
On linear. Yeah.
Okay, gotcha. Is it expensive on streaming, or it's like pretty reasonable?
It's more reasonable.
Okay, yeah. Gotcha. But it sounds like the way you're saying it, I'm like, don't do that. Yeah. It is really tough. I mean, it's probably a rare problem for brands because you're sort of everywhere. But for instance, if you're, let's say you're in Target, right? There's 1,800 Targets, still a lot of locations without Targets. So you're like, I don't know if I want to advertise to all of Wyoming when the only people who are going to buy my product inside Target where I'm trying to drive traffic to are in Cheyenne. And so I was always wondering if you could get a little bit more narrow there, but it sounds like broader is probably a little bit better just because getting narrow makes it so much more expensive.
It depends. Some brands, like you said, they're not available maybe in all 50 states, etc. And so in those cases, you usually recommend maybe leaning a little bit more into things like connected TV.
Okay, gotcha. And I would imagine from a measurement perspective, everyone does a lot of their own, Nik was talking about Northbeam and Triple Whale. You guys have your own platform for measurement. Tell us a little bit about how that works.
We're actually one of the only platforms that will give you next day measurement for TV, whether it's connected or linear, right? So if you were to run a native spot on Bravo this evening, you'd be able to come into our platform and see, okay, how many sales did it drive? How many people saw it, right? The way the measurement works is you can almost think of it similar to the way digital does, right? It's a closed loop. And so essentially we get an IP from the publisher, and then through our pixel that we place in a brand's website, we can tie that back to a site visit, a down funnel event, an email sign up, a first purchase, returning purchase, etc.
I'm sorry. So is the way that you're measuring, let's say something shows on Law and Order. I watch it on Law and Order. There's no IP address from that, right? I'm sort of just watch something sitting in my living room and I pull out my phone.
Sure. So you're saying you're watching on cable or something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. So that will operate a little bit more differently. As Juhi was saying, we'll pixel your website. We'll filter out sort of all tag traffic. So we're not really looking at any paid marketing. We're just looking
meaning at Facebook, Google.
Yes. Yeah. We're typically mostly looking at direct traffic, branded search, right? And then what we'll do is we'll sort of update what we call this dynamic baseline every minute of the day. So we'll know exactly the precise amount of traffic in your website. When that spot runs, that's sort of, I think, what a lot of brands like about linear TV is everybody's watching at the same time, for the most part, right? So you see this nice spike, and then we'll follow those people that arrive to figure out, do they come back and click a purchase, etc.
I got a couple questions. So one is around targeting and creative. So you mentioned Kevin Hart, for example. Is the reason to use Kevin Hart on TV, is that because, you're targeting on linear, you don't have a ton of control on who is seeing it in terms of interests and demographics, but having him earns you somebody's trust to watch the rest of the commercial? Is that fair to say?
Yeah, I mean, TV definitely, I would say, bigger screen, higher impact, stronger on the brand awareness side of things. So if you want to make that big impact with people with the brand awareness side, I think it makes sense to have Kevin up on the big screen, and also because the CPMs are pretty low, the reach and frequency is pretty broad. So actually reaching a lot of people for pretty cheap. So we definitely want to get that brand message out there on TV.
Okay, so anytime people talk about top of funnel, they're like TV is always mentioned in there. Like on Facebook, you could run a video views campaign. You could take that audience, retarget them with a link clicks, take that audience, retarget them with conversions. How do you do that through TV? Or how do you think about that with Fabletics?
So with the linear side of things, there's obviously you can't cookie them, but you can cookie site visitors in general. So they'll just be bucketed there. but it's getting a pretty broad reach. And then on the streaming side, you can make these audiences that you can market, target.
Got it. And then another question that came to mind. So I have a friend who's on a Bravo show, Summer House. If he were to run an ad for his brand that is, he has that Loverboy cocktail that's all over the show. If he were to run an ad, have you ever seen that where a brand runs an ad in a time frame where they're being product placed? Have you seen any results there?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, one, it's not exactly the same, but one example I can think of, right, would be like one of our clients, Takova's cowboy boots. So like biggest show on TV right now is probably Paramount's Yellowstone, right? Yeah. And Takova's being a cowboy boot, it seems like a pretty fair product market fit, right? And so there's actually been instances where after they essentially proved out the value or the ROI with Yellowstone, they were able to get characters from the show even in their creative.
Oh, wow.
Right, as part of a broader.
What does that do from, like if they were just running anywhere as a baseline, how does that respond differently?
Definitely. Well, I mean, people sort of think of them as the Yellowstone cowboy boot.
Yeah.
Right? So people watch Yellowstone.
Yeah.
Wow. Do you watch Yellowstone?
No, I've been meaning to watch it. I've heard it's like Succession of the Wild West.
Succession of the Wild West.
Or Billions of the Wild West.
That's a good way to put it.
Wow. Yeah. Yeah, but I haven't watched it yet. Have you watched it?
It's great, yeah.
Yeah.
Check it out.
Integrations is really, really interesting though. Like more and more people are now starting to, like D2C guys are now trying to tap into it because like you've just seen on the larger scale, I mean, what Barbie did, what Air did and all that stuff. I mean, D2C brands don't have the budgets to do a Barbie, for example, but you could sponsor an episode of The Kardashians on Hulu, or you could, pick another show or something. I think it's also a little more authentic if you're actually in the show versus just advertising. So I'm really excited about that new frontier, personally.
I always thought SK2 should have been in Crazy Rich Asians. Do you know Crazy Rich Asians?
Yeah.
You know what SK2 is? It's like this beauty brand made by with this amazing Japanese ingredient. It's a P&G brand. It sells for $180 a bottle. Wow. And I was like, you got like Crazy Rich Asians is the perfect
solid.
Yeah.
That's the targeting.
I was like, I'm a genius. Let me ask one more question about measurement, which is first, when you're looking at CPA, let me ask you actually two questions. Do you spend more on social or more on television at Fabletics today?
Social.
Okay. And when you're looking at CPAs, just from a pure pixel acquisition perspective, without any multipliers or anything, what do CPAs look like when you're looking at television versus social?
So I would say like Meta's, over time really perfected the conversion rate. So I would say it's still better on social and Google, but because the CPMs are so low on TV, even though the conversion rate's lower, it backs out.
Okay. What are CPMs on TV? Like what can I expect? Give us so yeah. We can come in with $10,000 a week. We can produce an ad for, let's say, $1,000. So really the barrier to entry is, I want to say $50,000. You need to be able to spend $50,000 when you want to experiment with television. Do you think that's fair or crazy?
Well, like as I said, there's some brands have tested even lower.
Yeah,
right? It's really going to be dependent on the advertiser. Like at Tatari, we don't really have minimums, but we do make like recommendations.
Yeah.
Right. So brand A might, if they're spending $1 million on paid a month, they're going to need to spend a little bit more than brand B, who maybe spends $200K to feel an impact. Yes. Right. So it's a little bit more prescriptive.
Yeah. And then tell me about CPM. So like, on Facebook recently, I've been seeing on Twitter, a lot of people have been like, my Facebook CPM is crazy high. Like, generally it sits between $10 and $20, maybe a little bit higher if you're looking at lookalike audiences. In the last couple of weeks, I've seen a lot of people who are like, I have a $136 CPM on Facebook. Something is wrong with Pixel. Have you seen that on Twitter?
Yeah.
What is going on ridiculous. There? You're not seeing that at Fabletics.
Actually, not
yeah.
Yeah.
You've seen that, right? I have no idea.
I've seen it, but I'm like, what kind of shady shit are you doing that you're being penalized?
Yeah, it's people who I think aren't necessarily doing like, I'm because like to get a $400 CPM on Facebook seems virtually impossible.
Yeah.
Like, I don't, you'd have to target two people, which Facebook doesn't let you do, and have really offensive language. I'm not sure how they're doing that. What is a CPM I can expect on TV? I mean, it must vary wildly because, like, I imagine the Super Bowl is way more than Law and Order. But, like, is Yellowstone way more than Law and Order? Or, like, are they kind of in the same ballpark?
For connected TV, if you're buying direct, which is how we typically recommend brand approach their streaming as opposed to purely programmatic, could be anywhere from $6 to $15. And then on linear TV, it's crazy. We'll have brands that spend $1 million a week at like a $4, $5 CPM.
Wow. Okay. Yeah. Okay. So streaming or connected is more expensive than linear when it comes, because there's more targeting involved. Is that right? Is that why?
Generally, yeah.
Okay. And then you said programmatic versus purchasing some other way.
Direct.
And what is the difference between those two?
I mean, virtually all digital marketing is transacted programmatically, right? Because there's this, it's very decentralized.
Yes.
And so you need this infrastructure to essentially place your ads, right? With connected TV, there's a lot of centralization. There's probably 15 publishers that have all of the supply of impressions that Fabletics may want. And so we see greater success when you just integrate or book directly with a publisher as opposed to introducing more intermediaries in most cases.
And when you book directly with a publisher, are you able to say, great, I want to be on Law and Order versus like programmatic where you're like, I'll take anything that's under $5 CPM? Is that the difference?
So the difference would be maybe programmatic. You're buying a little bit more audience based.
Okay.
Right. So maybe I want to target men 18 to 24 and it'll run wherever they are.
Yeah. Okay.
Right. Whereas Hulu, I say I want to target men 18 to 24, but it's just on Hulu.
Okay. Got it. Okay.
I have two questions. One is, Juhi, did you see that you could spend more on Facebook when you started running TV?
Yeah, we definitely saw a halo effect on all digital. Yes.
So you're just able, like, your point of diminishing returns basically got pushed out.
Yeah.
Okay. And then second question was on Facebook, if you're running performance campaigns, you're probably around a 2% or 1 to 3% click-through rate. How does that vary to TV? So like you send your ad out for Yellowstone, what percentage of people are coming to the site?
I don't know the exact percent off the top of my head, but I would say it's pretty comparable when you have a top performing network.
And what are the other things you do? Because like a lot of times I'll see a commercial for something. I don't go to their site right away. So now I do because I know there's some nerd on the other side who's looking at Google Analytics, because that's me sometimes. But like how else do you measure to understand if somebody found out about the brand through TV?
Tatari's attribution, I mean, I think most of it is in that 5-minute window of the spot airing, but some of it's called a drag factor, which you will probably explain better. But it takes into account some additional conversions that might happen later as well.
Got it.
And then on the streaming side, it's IP match. So that just happens, right?
Right.
And then from our perspective, we have the How Did You Hear About Us TV, the question in our quiz. So we're able to look at that as well, which has been pretty accurate, honestly.
Got it.
Is it more expensive to buy, this is a dumb TV commercial question, is it more expensive to buy the first commercial right after a TV show stops? So like, let's say I'm going to go back to Law & Order, you're watching Law & Order, the first commercial, is that more expensive than the second commercial? Because people are more likely to be watching
You may be like pay more to be in some cases to be in an area in which you want, right? So think about the final ad break before like a game-winning field goal or the kickoff, right? There's certain times that are, and you can pay a premium.
Yeah. Oh, that's interesting. That like, they're like, this is a game-winning field goal. The ads will be more expensive during this. That's why they're calling timeouts right before those field goals.
Obviously, we're not controlling the outcome of the game, but you can sort of make recommendations on whenabouts you'd like to run.
That's so interesting.
I think most people don't know this, but like on linear TV, you can buy 30-second slots, you can buy 60 seconds, and you can buy 15s.
Yeah.
And most people don't know you can actually get the 15 slots at 50% off from the 30 at half the price. So a lot of times, like if you want to get into TV, like you could also just test the 15s if you're worried about the budget.
Yeah. Are you running mostly 15s, 30s, or 60s?
We do a mix. Most of the inventory sits in 30 seconds and 15s, so mostly play in those.
Yeah.
But a lot of times we end up scaling 15s because it's half the price.
That's interesting.
With most ads, I feel like there's you have to have a really good hook because otherwise people just keep scrolling. But with TV, somebody's probably just sitting there and your competition is probably somebody pulling their phone out. How important, like how do you think about the creative or the storyboard of that 15 seconds to try to maximize it the most?
Yeah, it's a great question. I mean, we usually tend to start with the 30s because you're getting most of the brand message out there. And then once we get a read on it and we want to optimize it down, like say it's like just a little bit over our CAC goal or something, we'll introduce the 15. Because then you're getting that CPM cut and you already know that the messaging works. In the 15, usually you basically want to have the gist of the ad, and you want to make sure your call to action and offer is in there.
And on Facebook, for example, like the best practice is you show the product in the first few seconds, you sort of address the problem. I was on my flight to LA, there was this brand, I think Free Fly Apparel or Fish Fly, something like that.
They work with us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I saw their ad and they didn't have a single logo until the last like 5 seconds pop up. And I messaged them and I was like, why do you guys do this? But does that not matter in TV? Like you don't have to be so upfront and startling people by it?
It's something you can test for, right? And so maybe it was a scenario where they tested having a logo and not having a logo. They didn't see a demonstrable difference. And so they said, okay, I want to make it feel a little bit higher quality, right? Or a little bit more upper funnel. Some of the things that just tend to work best is like a soft call to action.
Yeah.
Right. So think like learn more as opposed to buy now.
Right.
A little bit less salesy. And then simplicity. Like one of the things that always works, I was not surprised when you said the founder spot, right? Yeah. Because it's very simple. It's direct eye contact, someone looking at the camera, maybe explaining the founder story of the problem solution. Yeah.
And
did they respond to you, by the way? You messaged them and you're like, why don't you have the logo?
Yeah, well, I tried adding like 8 people on LinkedIn and one of their consultants responded. Okay, so you mentioned top of funnel, right? Or like more awareness. What are the other things that, you know, if I were to try to maximize TV as best as I could, like for example, when like even now, right? Tatari sponsoring our podcast, I don't believe the leads come directly from the podcast. I think it's like we're the top of funnel, and then you've got the outbound sales machine that's working. You've got the events that are working. And within that, like limited supply is this added layer of trust that helps push the sale across. With TV, I feel like it's very similar. It's like it's not going to directly drive. You're not going to, you know, run a Hexclad commercial and see, well, Hexclad you might, but you're not going to run a commercial and see direct sales right away. What are the other pieces of that mix that need to be established and running to maximize the TV campaign?
Well, in many cases, you will see like a direct spike in sales, right? I think what a lot of marketers also need to understand is if you're a digital marketer and you're used to something like maybe a last click attribution, TV is non-clickable, right? So it's not going to look good.
I try, nothing happens.
Right. So I think that's an important thing to know. And then also just making sure that your conversion path is really set up for all the new prospecting traffic you're going to drive, right? It's very easy to navigate your site. It's easy to find the product they're looking for, et cetera.
Yeah, I guess the conversion path too is also fascinating. Have you ever been to lumidio.com? It's their TV URL compared to lumideodorant.com.
We had a TV URL too.
And it's the same page, which I thought was also interesting, but it's basically this endless scrolling landing page that speaks to like my mom. Have you seen like different, you know, like what type of pages work well for TV?
In most cases, we just recommend brands send people to the homepage, right? So a lot of people will try like a /TV.
Yeah.
Reality is most people are not going to remember the /TV.
Yeah.
That's why I think the unique URL is such a good idea, because then you're like Lumidio or like Lumi.
Yeah,
now.
get on Tatari.com.
They're going to Google the product and maybe they'll click the first search link that comes up, or they're just going to go straight to the URL.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I actually agree with this. The things I've personally seen as most effective is one, the homepage, or like even putting a promo code in it. That has worked as well.
Interesting.
But you still are like, hey, go to Fabletics.com and use promo code Nik Sharma to save 50%.
Yeah.
Okay.
Interesting.
It's been interesting too. Like now, some connected TV providers are offering an ad unit where you can put a QR code on it.
Yeah.
I personally have not seen a lot of people use the QR code.
Yeah, I can't imagine anybody does. I don't know why.
Because if your phone is within reach, you're on it.
Yeah, exactly.
Via watching the commercial.
Yeah, but it's interesting. We did an A/B test once where we put one and then on the other one we didn't. Even though they didn't use it, I don't know where it was like psychological or something. It ended up working.
Wow.
With it on there.
With statistical significance, the QR code is better.
Even
Wow.
though they didn't scan
That's
it.
interesting.
It was kind of interesting.
Yeah, that is surprising.
All right. Well, this has been, I mean, I feel like I learned a couple new things here.
I learned a ton of new stuff. Like, I'm not even sure I knew that the difference between streaming and linear was. They shouldn't call it linear. Linear is like too.
Yeah,
They should
and I
call
feel
it
like
old school TV.
I feel like at Forward, Philippe said they're all being combined, right?
Yeah. So a lot of people think CTV like connected TV.
Yeah,
We really think of it as like convergent TV, right?
that's what it
It's
was.
all-
Convergent
yeah.
TV. Yeah. And is that a new way you guys are going to look at it through the platform lens as well?
Absolutely. I mean, as I said, like the way people absorb content, it's changing, but a lot of the content's similar, right? So
Yeah.
you could watch CNN via your cable box or through CNN Go, their streaming platform, or you could go on your laptop or mobile device and click a live stream, right? It's
Wow.
all the same content. And I think the best TV marketers have figured out a way to test and sort of scale across all this.
Yeah, I don't remember if it was you that said this example, but somebody said, you know, like if my daughter wants to watch Aladdin, she doesn't care if it's on Disney Plus or on Disney Channel or on YouTube, but she just wants to watch Aladdin.
Yeah, it's similar. It's like, you know, when you go home, watch TV after
Yeah, that
work.
makes a lot of sense, right?
Yeah.
Like, yeah.
Yeah. You don't say like, hey, honey, do you want to watch linear or streaming? Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, thanks so much. I really appreciate you guys joining. I've learned a ton about how to run TV, but also how TV works and like where price points make sense too.
Yeah.
So this was
Thanks for
great.
coming on.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
And for
having
flying
us.
out.
Yeah.
Thanks for tuning in. We'll be back next time to cut through the noise in CPG, retail, and e-commerce.
And if you enjoyed this episode, then why not share it with a friend? And be sure to subscribe wherever you listen so you don't miss the next one.